So last week, we discussed this briefly last week. The audit in Georgia showed us a video evidence of the duplicate ballots actually being counted more than once. So this is what I mean when I differentiate between what seemed fishy and what seemed like evidence of wrongdoing versus the actual proof. So obviously when we saw the video of those ballots being counted twice, it seemed like that was proof that something shady was happening, that voter fraud might be committed in that action. However, we did not see the ballot count to show us that those ballots actually had been tallied more than once. Well, now we see a video and that is exactly what happened. Take a listen to this.
All right, so what we're looking at here are two different batches of votes. Scanner 5162, batch 234, image 59, and scanner 5162, batch 235, image 19. And what you can see is that, like on this vote right here, we've got this exact same little tail that shows on both of them. And if you think that maybe that's, if you think that maybe that's just a mistake or just a coincidence, here's the next one that shows, you can see Republican.
So that's one thing. We talked about that already, and it's extremely significant. If you can see the evidence that a ballot has been counted more than once, that's literally the classic definition of voter fraud. That was number one in Georgia. Number two was Professor Margot Cleveland's reporting on the 35,000 voters in Georgia who changed their voting addresses in a way that could constitute voter fraud if they cast their ballot in a certain county. So what I mean, and I'm gonna read you just a tiny bit because we've talked about this previously, but we need to remember what this is, which is why I'm summarizing it again. This is what Professor Cleveland wrote. She goes, new evidence indicates that more than 10,300 illegal votes were cast in Georgia in the November 2020 general election. I'm gonna pause reading her article for 1 second just to remind everyone, the number of votes that separated Joe Biden and Donald Trump in the 2020 election in the state of Georgia, 12,670. It was this close, the breadth of a hair. So Professor Cleveland writes, under Georgia law, residents must vote in the county in which they reside unless they change their residence within 30 days of the election. As Jake Evans, a well-known Atlanta election lawyer, told me, outside of the 30-day grace period, if people vote in a county in which they no longer reside, their vote in that county would be illegal. So Professor Cleveland says nearly 35,000 Georgia voters who indicated they had moved from one Georgia county to another, but then voted in the 2020 general election in the county from which they had moved. Now again, pause here. It's critical whether these moves, these 35,000 people who indicated that they moved, whether these moves were temporary or permanent. Because if they're just temporary, you can still vote in that county of origin, if you will. If they're permanent, you may not. And there's evidence that a significant portion of them were permanent moves. So Professor Cleveland writes, more than 10,300 had updated their voter registration information, providing the Secretary of State the exact address they had previously provided to the USPS, the change of address system that we're all familiar with. Those same 10,000 plus individuals also cast ballots in the county in which they had previously lived. By updating their address for purposes of their voter registration, these same voters are confirming their move is not temporary. When a person updates their voter registration to a new address, they're informing the County Board of Elections and correspondingly the Secretary of State that they regard the new address as their legal residence. So again, the voters themselves confirmed that they voted essentially illegally in the wrong county, and they confirmed that it was a legal move by informing the Secretary of State that they were changing their voter registration after that. Remember how many votes Biden won Georgia? 12,000. So if we already have evidence that 10,000 votes could potentially be illegal, I don't see how they couldn't be based on this evidence. Plus, we have this other evidence on the video showing duplicate ballots being counted more than once. This is a really big deal. So that's in Georgia. So pivot over to Arizona for a moment. Maricopa County audit. Again, Donald Trump lost Arizona to Joe Biden by 10,457 votes. 10,457 votes. Again, the breadth of a hair. So here are the abnormalities that this Maricopa County audit has brought to the surface. Are you ready for this? 3,981 people voted in the election despite registering after the court-ordered deadline to register to vote of October 15th. So if the court said the deadline to register to vote is October 15th and voters register after that and then cast their ballot, how are those valid votes? We have to ask the question. We have to get the answer. That's number one. Number two, 11,326 people voted who were not on the voter rolls on November 7th, but were on December 4th. So the individuals conducting this audit, and this is a quote, they were testifying about this. They said, and I quote, "We have also seen some interesting things related to the voter rolls." So for example, we have 11,326 people that did not show up on a November 7th version of the voter rolls and after votes were cast, but then appeared on the December 4th voter rolls. So were they registered or were they not registered? And if they were added to the voter rolls after the election, then how could their ballots, how could their votes possibly be legal? We have to ask and we have to get an answer. That's number two. Number three is 18,000 people voted and then were removed from the voter rolls after the election. Now, maybe there's a valid reason for this, but we have to ask the question and we have to get an answer to this. And then this is the biggest deal of all. That was number three. This is number four, the abnormalities from these audits in Arizona. 74,243 mail-in ballots were counted with no evidence of ever being sent to the voters in the first place. So again, the individual conducting the audit said, and I quote, "For example, 74,243 mail-in ballots where there's no clear record of them being sent." And just to be clear, here in the state of Arizona, there is EB32s and EB33s. EB32s is supposed to give a record of when a mail-in ballot is sent. It's a form, right? And EB33 is supposed to give a record of when the mail-in ballot is received. So there should be an equal. There should be more EB32s, that form, more sent out than there are received. Specifically, with these, we can tie them to a specific individual it was mailed to. And so we have 74,000 where it came back from individuals where we don't have a clear indication that it was ever sent out to them. End quote. All of this is obviously shady. It's not even controversial to say that. The Democrats might tell you it's controversial, but it's not. It's just numbers. This appears to be voter fraud.
Hi, before you go, let me talk to you about something. As you know, I've been censored on Facebook and YouTube, so I partnered with locals to create a censorship-free community. I also just launched my show, and I have a lot of exciting new things coming up that I want to make sure I can share with you and get your input on. I'm going to be sharing behind-the-scenes looks of my set and my show prep, and I get a lot of questions about my hair and makeup routines, my research process, and so much more. So I'll give you sneak peeks of all of that. I'll also be doing exclusive segments of my show just for Locals VIPs. All of my interviews will be shared on Locals for VIPs to watch as well. I'll be taking questions directly from VIPs for the video mailbag in my show, and you'll get the episodes free from ads. Who doesn't love that? Not to mention, I'll keep doing everything that you've already come to love. Ask me questions for live Q&As. Let's talk about your favorite books, what yummy vegan food I'm eating for lunch, and what ridiculous headlines I'm reading today. You can do all of that and more, but only if you are a Liz Wheeler Show VIP on Locals. The monthly subscription is $9 a month, but if you really want a good deal, we have an annual subscription for just $72. That's 4 months free. 4 months. So join me on Locals as a VIP. I'll see you over there.